Blog Talk Radio.
Bring in, as promised, Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker Michael Moore. Michael, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith.
There's been a spike in the desire to own guns in Connecticut. Statewide, over 90,000 guns have been authorized for sale. You know how I feel about it.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Welcome, my fellow patriots. It is Friday in the land of the free, the home of the brave. That was Madison Rising. I ask that you go out to their website, MadisonRising.com, and look at some of the other tracks that they have. They have a CD for sale. I want to thank them for allowing them to use that for our opening tonight. But, man, isn't it wonderful to be in America, to be American, to be a patriot? You know, as I look back, you know, it's Friday. I hope you guys are planning a great weekend with your loved ones, with your family. You know, going to get caught up on some of the honey-do list out there. I know I am, hopefully. But isn't it great? It is Friday, the 18th of October. Fall is in the air. It's starting to turn cold here in the great state of Wisconsin. Leaves are falling. It's just magical. It's just incredible to be in a country in which we still have our freedom of speech, and that we are still able to bring you quality programming as you hear here at the Midnight Patriot. If you'd like to join us at the Midnight Patriot, you can always give us a call at 347-205-9899, or you can Skype us at the Midnight Patriot. That's our Skype name, the Midnight Patriot. Now, this is a number that I'm going to give you, and we've been giving it out, and we're not going to publish this number on our website. This is only for individuals who actively listen to our show. Here's a private number to the studios, 262-997-0607. That's 262-997-0607. If you want to join us here at the Midnight Patriot, join the show and everything, feel free to give us a call. We ask that, you know, of course, I know this is kind of not going to happen, but we ask that you don't give that number out. Those are just for the people that listen to our show. We're not broadcasting that number on any websites or anything like that. But I just want to say, you know, we can't forget about the past week. And Friday shows, if this is your first time listening to us, we kind of wrap up the week. We do a little bit of news. There is a lot of news still out there. The fight is not over. So, you know, we can't let up. We must press on. But tonight mainly is a wrap up of the week. Some of the events that went on in the prior week. Kind of prepare for next week, things that we need to get ready for. And just to kind of wind down and to enjoy the good friends and patriots that we have come to know over this week. Now, with that, if you guys were listening last night, we started a new segment to honor the fallen. American soldiers who have put on our country's uniform to defend our freedom. Regardless of your political beliefs, regardless of if you feel that the wars are justified or not, we as patriots must always honor those who pay the ultimate price for us. So I ask, if you see a soldier in the airports, in the bus stations, train stations, and they're in uniform, go up to them, thank them for what they do. And that also includes those men and women in public service. Police officers, EMTs, paramedics, firemen. Thank them. You know, we had this discussion earlier on Facebook, earlier this week, I should say, where, you know, yes, I know there's plenty of video out there on YouTube and plenty of documented cases where individuals who are in a position of authority feel that they can put their boots around our necks and press us to the ground. I know that. I know who they serve. You know who they serve. But there are also men and women that are just like you and I. Their husbands, their wives, fathers, daughters, spouses. So remember that. Remember that. And remember, as we talked about yesterday in our closing segment, the last third hour of our show, the way that we're going to be able to move and effect change and to get people back into the Patriot movement and to bring people into the Patriot movement is not to isolate and attack them. See, you have to look at what your opposition's doing and do the opposite. There's a reason why. We might not have the sociologists and the psychologists and all of those individuals, all of those, individuals with three-letter titles after their name. The opposition does. They use your taxpayer dollars to get them. But look what they're doing. Look at the advice that they're doing, because they're pressing the issue their way by division. They're trying to keep us divisive. Look at what's going on already with the GOP and Ted Cruz. Look at what the mainstream media is currently doing right now. They're trying to divide us. They're doing reports about the fact that, Boner's out. Ted Cruz has, done some illegal or didn't disclose some financial disclosures. Look at what they're doing. They're trying to divide us. So the best way to fight against that is to come together. Support each other. And don't fall into the trap that all law enforcement, all military is bad. Look at the shakeups that's going on in our military right now. Another general today, Marine Corps, Quantico, was relieved of duty. Look at that. They're trying to divide us. That's what mainstream media is, the mouthpiece for those who want to bring this country to its knees. And I say to you, don't fall into it. Don't allow them to do that. When they try to divide us, that is when we should be coming together. When they try to destroy our religion or try to interject their values, as Satanist as they may be, on our religion, that's the time, if you haven't gone to church or if you haven't expressed your religious beliefs, that's the time that we should start. Meet fire with fire. Now, there's a part of our government who's just waiting. You can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it in their speech, waiting for us to attack physically so that they could ratchet their oppression up even more and call it justified. I say to you, my fellow patriots, don't fall into it. Don't fall into it. Even the great Muhammad Gandhi, I should say, that was the great leader Gandhi, knew that there was a time for peace when he was faced with great opposition and oppression from the British rule. He knew when to stand down. But if you actually studied some of his works, he also knew when to fight. And at the time, the fight wasn't necessary. And if you want, I've always said this, if you want to drive your enemy this enemy crazy, do exactly what we're doing. Stand up, speak your mind, do it peacefully. Don't be destructive. and stick to your guns. Now, also remember that there is a time to fight. There is a time to fight. And when that time comes, heaven help those who have tried to oppress us, the patriots, us, the Americans. You're listening to Jeff Norton, the Midnight Patriot radio show. It's Friday the 18th. If you'd like to join us, give us a call at 347-205-9899, or you can Skype us at themidnightpatriot.com. Our Skype name is actually The Midnight Patriot. Our backdoor number for all of those that are listening tonight is 262-997-0607. I'd love to hear from you. When we get back, of course, we're going to talk about some of the economic upheaval, some of the layoffs that were posted today with the Department of Employment. It's very important that you guys hear that. And then, of course, we will honor those fallen soldiers who have given their life for the month of October and everything. So, stay tuned. We'll be back.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children. Visit stjude.org.
America, welcome home the brave. The brave men and women who serve their country are coming home. Home to their cities and towns. Home to their mountains and valleys. Home to their families and friends. Home to America. Some of these warriors are coming home with wounds you can see, and some with wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. Contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
You're listening to the Midnight Patriot. I'm your host, Jeff Norton, on this great Friday night, 18th of October. This section that we're going to be talking about, I got to forget, I keep on getting in trouble for not doing this. So if you want to join us on the web, yeah, even I make mistakes. It's not bad, though. This is our 9th episode. So we're still learning the technology, adapting it. You know, one of the things that we've implemented is this paperless studio here, trying to cut down on the amount of paper. I don't know if I like it, to be honest with you. I'm a firm believer that we probably, you know, let's put some loggers to work. Let's put some paper industry people to work. I'm sure some of those up in upper Wisconsin would like to hear that. It's still hard. It's even hard for me to go paperless. I like having the paper in my hand. I like owning the book. You know, I've downloaded a couple books on Kindle. I've read them and everything. I don't know. So change is in the air here, but you know, I got to remember to do this. So if you want to join us at the Midnight Patriot, you can always Skype us at the Midnight Patriot. That is our Skype name. You can give us a call at 347-205-9899, or our backdoor number for those that are listening to the show. You can always call us at 262-997-0607. So we started a segment yesterday, and it's a segment that we're going to continue. As long as those men and women put our nation's uniform on and everything, we will honor them. And this is a segment that we're going to call, you know, Honor the Fallen here at the Midnight Patriot. So if you want information and the list of these soldiers, you can go out to the Department of Defense website and search. It's called The List for those that don't know. So with that, let's honor the men and women who have paid the ultimate price for our country and our freedom. Army Staff Sergeant Patrick H. Quinn, October 13th, 2013. Army Sergeant Patrick C. Hawkins, October 6th, 2013. Army Captain Jennifer M. Marino, October 6th, 2013. Army Private First Class Cody J. Patterson, October 6th, 2013. Army Sergeant Joseph M. Peters, October 6th, 2013. Lance Corporal Jeremiah M. Collins, Jr., October 5th, 2013. Army Specialist Angel L. Lopez, October 5th, 2013. Our hearts go out to you, your families, to your fellow soldiers who have lost brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, spouses. Our commitment to you here at the Midnight Patriot is that if you are a soldier, past or present, and you need help, and you need anything, and if there's anything we can do for you here at the Midnight Patriot, we are connected with the Wounded Warrior. We do have friends in the organization. We have also friends within the vet community. So if there's anything we can do for you and your families, let us know. Give us a call. We'll be glad to help you. We respect you, we honor you, and we will never forget the sacrifices that you have done in order for us to have a free and great country such as America. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You are listening to the Midnight Patriot Radio Show. Wow. Every time, I don't know, every time I do that, I just get choked up. I do. I get choked up. It's a feeling that I can't describe it. I'm a loss for words. I know that's hard to believe for a lot of you that know me. I'm a loss for words. That's a segment that we will always do. It will probably be the hardest segment that I will ever do. But it's my commitment here as the Midnight Patriot to honor you, the fallen. So with that, let's kind of move into what's going on. We got to move on. That's the way they would want it. Let's march forward. Can't stop. We have a lot of information to give you in a very short period of time before we all head off into the weekends with our families and our friends and everything. But I do ask, if you have an opportunity to see a soldier, just acknowledge him. Say thank you. It's amazing. They don't necessarily need our money or anything like that. They just need to know that we care for them and we appreciate everything they do. So with that, let's kind of kick over here to let's talk about daily job cuts. The economists talk all these numbers, unemployment, this, all the, all of the reality of it. We know what the economy's like. We can see it in our neighbors. We can see it in the community. That's one way that mainstream media tells you that everything is okay. And you see that, but yet when you go outside and you're out, you're talking with your friends and your family, and you kind of ask yourself, well, are we different? Why is unemployment so large here? Why is there so many people filing for first-time jobless claims and so many people, on food stamps, and so many people doing, we see that. Good people that aren't part of that third generational wealth of welfare. These are your friends, your neighbors, and typically you don't see it until it's too late, because most Americans, they don't want handouts. Most. There's a group that does. We'll talk about that. We always talk about that on this show. But most Americans don't want a free ride. So you don't typically hear about it until it's too late, until their houses are foreclosed on or their cars are repossessed, or, you don't hear about it. We know what's up. We're not going to listen to the mainstream media and tell us that everything, be calm. Everything's going to be okay. We're not, we know what's up. And part of that is that, our labor. We reported it last night on the show. General Motors, of the $51 billion that they received, $31 billion was probably paid back. Another $10 billion, they're basically saying, don't worry about it. President Barack Obama, with a stroke of a pen, basically allowed General Motors, to ship and to build factories in China. Part of the bailout for General Motors, actually written into the agreement, was we're going to give you this money, but you have to take that money and you have to invest it into infrastructure, and you have to hire more Americans. They didn't do that. And instead of holding their feet to the fire, what does the president do? Instead of honoring your commitment, he allows them to forgo that part of their agreement. So all of my UAW union and also my union friends, when this president comes to you and says, we are for you, you got to ask yourself, he might on the face of it say that he is for you, and you might believe that, but in reality, when his administration allows for industry, maybe the industry that you're in, to move its operations overseas and to build factories and hire foreign Chinese laborers, When he does that, and the factory that you worked at for 20, 30, 40 years, your father worked at, your grandfather worked at, is now a slab of concrete. You got to ask yourself, yeah, you know, this guy gives us a great story. He says that he's for us. And the whole time that we're standing in the welfare lines or the unemployment lines or we're trying to find jobs, he's telling us, I'm for you. But you don't want that handout. You want a job. And this administration has, by their actions and by their legislation, their laws, they are constantly, they can tell you whatever they want to tell you, but look at their actions. They have passed. They're not your friend. A lot of people will say, well, you have the Democrats and the Republican. Democrats are for the people and the Republicans are for capitalism and the corporations. But you really got to ask yourself of late, who just showed you who's for the corporations? Really? You got President Obama giving GM a pass on their commitment when they took $51 billion. That's your money, our money. They only paid $31 billion of it back. And that's questionable because now we're finding out that GM was engaged in toxic lending practices. So a lot of those cars that they sold to pay that $31 billion back will probably be, we'll find out that they were tied to toxic loans. The same loans, same type of loans that were done in the housing industry, and we know how that ended up. So when they tell you, we're for you, and then they allow your jobs to be shipped overseas, factories being built, then they allow General Motors off the hook, and they didn't pay back their full amount. I mean, the GAO say that we're probably going to lose about $10 billion. You want to know where your $10 billion is? Go to China. I'm sure it's in a factory over there. It's probably in some general's pockets in China as well. So you got to ask yourself once again, and stress this. So when you look at what they tell you and what they do, it's two different things. The single biggest tax levied on the American people is going to be in the history, mark my words, right here, Friday the 18th, 2013, October. The Midnight Patriot, Jeff Norton, said that the largest tax put on the American people is going to be this Obamacare tax. Now, we all know it's a tax. I've been stressing this. The administration even admitted when they were arguing in front of the Supreme Court that it was a tax on the American people. So it's a tax. But what did our administration do? Getting back to the point here about how this administration is so pro-corporations and not pro-people. They allowed the corporations of this country, they put off the mandate. Yeah, they put off the mandate. So, but the problem is that we as individuals still have to have insurance. We have to all have insurance, or we have to pay the penalty as of January 1. And if you don't pay the penalty, they actually have access to your bank account, and they'll just take the money out of your account based upon last year's wages. So the way this works is that, let me kind of lay this out for you. You made, say, $50,000 a year. It's $95 plus 1%, whatever's greater is the penalty. So you made $50,000 a year, but because of the economic policies of this administration, you're now laid off. You refuse to go into the Obamacare exchange or the Obamacare website, and you refuse to give them your information, to provide them with your information. So come tax time, they're going to come back to you and they're going to assess your penalty based upon, because you did not update your information. They're going to base your penalty is going to be based upon the information that they have at hand, not the real information. And if you ever had to deal with the IRS, HHS in this case, if you ever had to deal with them, it's a pit. Your money comes in, to get your money out, it's almost near impossible. So there's going to be, millions of Americans, millions of patriots who are going to refuse to participate in the Obamacare exchanges and stuff that are going to be penalized and taxed with no representation. They're just going to take it. You don't write them a check. They're just going to reach into your account and take it. So, this administration, this pro-people administration, pro-union people administration, this is directed towards all those union guys out there. We know that, the unions made this country what it is. We get a 5-day work week, holidays, paid holidays, all that. We know where that comes from. Don't think that for a minute that we don't understand the fight that you guys did or that the unions did on our behalf. And we appreciate that. But you got to ask yourselves, who's out for your best interest? It sure in the heck isn't this administration. Because what they've done, here's another example. I gave you the example about allowing jobs to be shipped overseas when they constantly tell you, we're here for the, most jobs here in the United States. They're now talking about, immigration reform. Allow immigration or immigrants to come in, hire, get paid lower wages than what you are. That helps the corporations because when the mandate does kick in, those immigrants are not required to have Obamacare or can't get Obamacare. So it's a loophole that corporations can use, businesses, longshoremen, truck drivers, factory workers. You're going to find your jobs being replaced because when the mandate does kick in for them, they won't be required to, because the individuals that they're hiring, because they are foreigners, immigrants, and they can't participate in the Obamacare program for 10 years. So it's a loophole. But they gave them the mandate. They gave the corporate entities mandates where they suspended the mandate for 1 year for them. But you as an individual still has to carry insurance. So a business, you got to remember, a business is out for, they're out to make money. That's their bottom line. You don't stay in business long unless you can make money and save money. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to drop the number one expense in their business. They're going to drop, and we're seeing it time and time again. You hear about it. You don't have to go very far. You're hearing about businesses who are now dropping their insurance on their employees and telling you, the individual, that you have to, go get your own insurance. They don't have to cover you for a period of a year. So you have to have your own insurance. So when the mandate, if the mandate for corporates ever start back up, I got to ask you, do you think that they're going to get insurance? Do you think that they're going to hire a person who doesn't have insurance and have to pay that expense? Or when you're standing there in the office, in their office, trying to get a job because your unemployment ran out or because, whatever reason, you lost your job and you're trying to get a new job, and there's candidate A and candidate B, and candidate B has subscribed to the Obamacare system, has given up their rights and their freedoms and all of that, and you, the patriot, has not. You, the union worker, has not. Who do you think they're going to hire? It's not going to be you. You know, that's how this works. That's how it's designed. That's how it's designed. And their fix is not to eliminate. I don't care what government has never pulled back from any oppressive legislation. I dare you. I challenge you, not dare, I challenge you to show me where government has pulled back from any kind of abusive, tyrannical legislation. They haven't done it, ever. You know, once, you know, the Patriot Act, you know, the FISA courts, once those are enacted, they don't pull back. Their fix is going to probably be a one-payer system. Now, a lot of you guys will be like, oh, the one-payer system is great. The problem is this, with the one-payer system. You look at our one-payer system that we currently have here in the United States right now. They're telling you it's going to go bankrupt. They're telling you there's no money in it. You know, show me a government-ran anything that actually works, but doesn't cost taxpayers money. There isn't one. You know, their answer to it, you know, and when you have unlimited resources and unlimited money, you know, everything looks good. But in reality, when you break it down in efficiencies, look at the $93 million Obamacare website. Still doesn't work. You know, can you imagine what a Amazon or what a eBay or what a Google could have done with $96 million? You know, and it's clearly tied to the bureaucracy involved. You know, so tell me, you know, government. There's nothing that government does in the private sector that's actually profitable, that actually works. The reason why it works is because they just throw more money at it. That's why we have the deficits and the debt ceiling that we have. It's not because it works, it's just because they're throwing more and more money at it, you know. But that's coming to an end. It's coming to an end. So all of my union buddies out there, all my union friends, I've got a lot of union friends. Got to ask yourself, and I know that they're pro Obama, you know, he's out for the work. Got to ask yourself, how can you be out for the working class when you're allowing your jobs to be shipped overseas? And now they're allowing your jobs to be replaced, or they're trying to allow your job to be replaced by immigrants, illegal aliens, with amnesty. Now, I'm not against people coming to this country. This country is a melting pot. I would agree with a immigration policy that stated this: you can come to this country and we welcome you. You cannot, however, receive any kind of social or welfare assistance while you're here. Most countries are like that. You actually have to put money into the bank account, and you got to show them. If you want to participate in their healthcare system, you actually have to buy into it. You have to put the money into it. That's how most countries are. I'm not against immigration. But I am against immigration with the intent to come here and siphon money from the American people. If that's your intention, stay home. Don't come here. But if you want to be an active member of our society and of the culture here, and you want to contribute and you want to bring your culture to our that's great. But understand this: you are an America. You know, you're in America. You know, we're not going to change our national language. You need to learn ours. We're not going to force your language in our schools, and you know, we're not going to pass laws saying that it's discriminatory if we don't hire you because you can't speak the language. You know, If you want participation, doesn't mean just sitting in the circle and saying, here I am, take care of me. Participation means participation. And if you want to participate in this conversation, join us. Join us. Give us a call, 347-205-9899 or 262-997-0607. So as your, you union guys, my union brethren out there and stuff, think about that. Think about that. So, we're already 45 minutes into this conversation here at the Midnight Patriot radio and podcast. I don't know. Like I said, it's been a up and down week. We've had some high points and we've had some low points. Not everything went our way, and nor is it going to. But I think that one of the things, you always got to look at the brighter side of life. That Monty Python movie. I think, I was watching the news this week today, and I know we've got them running. Think about it. The Midnight Patriot radio show podcast launched last week. I've been contacted by several other patriots who are also starting podcasts. We've been helping them get their shows up, kind of showing them the easy way of doing this. The movement's out there. My Facebook page, like I said, when we started the Midnight Patriot and we started doing friends and postings and all of that, started out with 0 about 2 weeks ago. We have over 1,000, I think about 900 and something friends. And I do apologize. I haven't been posting today. It's been really busy here trying to get, upgrades and stuff, taking care of, business. But I'm sure we'll hit 1,000 over the weekend, 1,000 requests. And that's actually with us unfriending some people. Now, I'll tell you this, we're on Facebook. You can always send us a message. We'll listen, I'll talk and everything with you during the day. But if you send me game requests and I go to your page and I find out that that's all you do, God bless you. Really. I mean, go, if that's what you do, hey, who am I to say? But we will unfriend you because we need that space. And I want to hear from patriots. I want to hear from other freedom fighters out there. I don't have time for the games, and everything. So, just be warned. Don't be offended. Be warned. But we need to reserve that space for anybody. If you want to join, we have a Patriot Insider group that we're starting. If you want to be added to that group, just send us a message. We'll be glad to get you into the group, and we'll keep you up to date with what's going on here at the Midnight Patriot and some of the news and everything and stuff. So just a little house cleaning there. That's what Friday's all about. Friday is kind of a wrap up of the week. But yes, we've had our high points on the 16th, 17th for various reasons. We sat there and we watched the GOP cave to their demands. No sooner than the GOP cave. This kind of tells you what you're dealing with. America, patriots. We all know this is more for Americans. Guys that are sitting on the fence. Look at, once the GOP, gave in to the demands of the president and his administration. You had certain members of Congress out there gloating in it. You had them actually they couldn't even on the floor as they were in their final general conversations or speeches, gloating in it. that tells you and it's not gloating in like, look, we told you all along, you guys were wrong. Gloating in the fact that we broke you. We broke you, GOP. We broke you. No one likes a sore loser. We hear that, but I can tell you, you want to irate people, no one likes a sore winner either. You didn't win. The reality of it is what you did is you woke up America. The blogosphere has been going crazy for the last 2 weeks. More patriots. I'm seeing more and more patriots people contacting us. I'm talking to more and more people, having the water cooler conversations with individuals, and they're starting to wake up. America knows the system is broken. And as we talked about last night, you have certain Americans who just don't care as long as they get that check, right? And those you're not going to help. You can't help. That's because they were raised and born and raised up in a generation of me. It's almost a profession. They should put that on their resume. Because they're so good at it. There are. It's scary. That they do that. I mean, there are organizations within our own country that shows people how to live off of us, off of you and me. And so you're never going to get them to think otherwise. But what I am seeing is there is a segment of the American populace who's on the fence. And the problem is that they know something's wrong. They know that, it's not working. They know that. But they have that mentality or that belief system, well, there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm not going to worry about it. I've got my own problems. And I understand that. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. And that's what the government is, that they got you. That's where they want you, because at that point you're pliable. They can mold you. They can shift you. They can get you to go one way or the other. If you join Obamacare, if you don't vote for our programs, and you hear it here, and I've said it again, I tell you, the campaigns are coming out in 2016 before they even come out. If you don't vote for us, you're going to lose your health care. You're going to lose your food stamps. You're going to lose, the government handout. See, the government, it's not in their best interest to have you self-sufficient. Because when you're self-sufficient and you don't need the government, and you're right with your creator, Mark talked about it yesterday at Prepper Recon, get right. That's one of the first things. Get right with your spirit, with your God, with Jesus. Because the government has realized, go back to Stalin, they realized that when you're right with God and Jesus, and you're right with you as a person, they can't control you. They can't mold you and manipulate you. And at that point, government shrinks because you don't need them. If there wasn't so many people that were taking off the doors of the government and the taxpayers, not the government, because the government doesn't produce anything. It's the taxpayers. The government takes from you and gives to them. That's what they're there for. But if they didn't have that, there would be no use for them. And government realizes it, almost like a living entity. In order for it to survive, it must grow. And in order for it must grow, it must buy votes. I've said this all along. I had to do a bumper sticker. President Obama, stop using my money to buy your votes. And that's the truth. It's exactly what they're doing. And it's going to continue. And, here's a great clip. I mean, actually, I got to play this clip for you. This is that group. This is that group that you just need to walk away from. You just need to just turn your back on. We talked about it at the water cooler. There's two types. There's the ones that are so narcissistic, there's nothing you can do. Typically they're not working anyways, so you don't have to worry with them. But then there's the other that are on the fence. They know something's wrong and they don't know how to deal with it, or they just can't because they're so caught up in all of their issues and stuff. And we talked about it. But this is the group. So you can identify very easily what this group is. This is the group. This is the group you just need to walk away from, right?
And having children and just for money, just for the state. So the state of California can pay for WIC, GR, food stamps, daycare. The state of California, if you want EBT, the state of California is the best place to get your money. They'll pay you the most. And yeah, it's like $221 for GR and about $179 for food. That's for each person. So, yeah. You get free daycare, you get free food, you can go to fast food restaurants now. Domino's Pizza is accepting EBT. McDonald's, I haven't saw a sign for McDonald's. Subway, you can take your EBT card. Like you get $221 in cash. You get free daycare. So if you have 4 kids or 6 kids, you get money for free daycare. So all of them can go to daycare. And most people, they have their friend as the daycare person, and they split the money. I heard all about it. And they split the money for that. And then you have the cash that they give you, and then the lights and gas and the free home. Who would want to work in America? This is what the taxpayers are paying for.
This is what the taxpayers are paying for. So with that, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we do have some counter to this mindset. I also have a video that we played a little bit, or audio that we played last week. I'm going to share that with you because not all hope is lost, America. Not all hope is lost, but that's what you're dealing with. When you deal with that, walk away. Just walk away. Don't even engage it. Those individuals are just their profession or their job is to extract money from us. She clearly said it. That's her job and stuff. So don't even bother with that. And everything. So you're listening to the Midnight Patriot Radio Show podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, you can give us a call at 347-205-98 or 9899. Sorry about that. That's 9899. Or you can Skype us at The Midnight Patriot. Or, of course, you can give us a call on our private number, which is only given out during the broadcast, is 262-997-0607.
America, welcome home the brave. The brave men and women who serve their country are coming home. Home to their cities and towns. Home to their mountains and valleys. Home to their families and friends. Home to America. Some of these warriors are coming home with wounds you can see, and some with wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
At this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and visit stjude.org today.
Talk a little bit about your history. Your bio says that you have 7 years of firsthand experience in the grip of welfare dependency. What does that mean?
Well, it means I believe the lie of the left. I believe a lot of the rhetoric that we're hearing today, that the poor are poor because the wealthy are wealthy, that my problems were somebody else's fault, that America's inherently racist, so no need to mainstream. And I got caught up in a lot of reckless behavior, criminal activity, drug activity, sexual activity that landed me in and out of the welfare state 3.5 years consistently. And it wasn't until a Christian conversion that I changed my life. Now, this is the significance of what we're discussing at the Value Voter Summit. There are Americans who changed their lives based on new information about religious conviction and personal responsibility. When you change your life and you start saying, wait a minute, I have an obligation to my neighbor to be self-sufficient, to be responsible with my decisions, you start to see debt go down. You start to see responsibility increase. So you start to see prosperity. It's a challenge it was a challenge in my life, and it's a challenge in a lot of people's lives today, that we keep making political promises that somebody else will take care of you, and that person is getting weaker as a contributor in this society.
Your latest op-ed for the Christian Post, this is the headline, Budget Crisis has roots in the erosion of values. Can you expand on that?
Well, that's wonderful, Colin. I've been talking quite a bit about what's happened first of all, my column is for Scripps News Service, and so we distribute to about 300 different outlets, and so I just need to clarify that because people wonder, how are you on so many places? And it's just the one distribution service. But what I'm looking at this week in my column is this conflict of visions. You know, there are those in our society now, and especially here in Washington, that keep insisting that all of the shutdown is the Republicans' fault, and that the Tea Party are ideologues, and that this is what's driving this discussion. The Tea Partiers are ideologues, but so is the president. What they have are two separate visions for this country, and that's what the great debate is about.
A lot of our folks say the Tea Party is largely the ones behind what's currently going on with the shutdown, and they're the ones that made it happen.
You know who the Tea Partiers are? They're decent people in quiet communities who finally were fed up and began to elect officials that would go and do exactly what this country was designed to do, have a three-part government and representatives of the people. The congressional leaders that are taking control over this discussion are representing districts of people who are voters who are saying enough is enough, we have to bring our fiscal house in order.
Do you think there's a real discussion going on between the two parties, though?
We'll see. No, well, the president decided he didn't want to talk about these things, but now as the shutdown goes on, I think that he and Harry Reid are starting to realize that they must discuss it. They only represent half of the country. The other half are the contributors, and they are wanting to have a dialogue about how long we're going to overspend, out-of-control debt, broken families, and this big government is just not healthy for a society. And so, yes, we should have the discussion. Will we have it this particular instance, and will it conclude this particular time? Maybe not, but at least we're moving it forward.
That's right. We should have the discussion. That was Star Parker, columnist, blogger, writer, activist. She came from that toxic belief system, and you know, use her own words. It wasn't until she turned herself around and got involved in religion and found her path through God, that she discovered what the environment and the world that she lived in was toxic, was evil, was wrong. And that goes to my point that I made earlier in the last hour. You know, government is offended by religion. Now, of course, they stand up there and they do that because that's the great deceiver. That's the great deceiver. And I'm not saying that all government officials are anti-religion. I'm not saying that at all. But if you look at some of the most mainstream ones, the ones that are out there, and you see, you know, you see what they do, and you got to ask yourself, you got to question yourself. You know, are they truly part of a true Christian religious group, or are they just doing that pandering to get the votes? So, you know, if you have an opinion, feel free to give us a call. You can call us at 347-205-9899, or you can Skype us at the Midnight Patriot, or our backdoor phone number, only given out to those that listen, is 262-997-0607. So, you know, there was a lot in the news. You know, actually today, you know, there's still hasn't done it. You know, you've got President Obama pushing for immigration reform. That's the next big hurdle. That's what you're seeing. That's the next big watershed moment, the next big decisive fight that's going to go on. You know, today, though, and I was happy to see this, and it's a topic that this administration has avoided. It's a topic that this administration does not want to talk about for obvious reasons. You know, we can go down the list. We've listed them out. A lot of the controversy within this administration, the IRS scandal, the NSA snooping, Obamacare being the most recent, Fast and Furious, and that. And one topic which was refreshing actually to see resurface today was Benghazi. Now, I wasn't there. I didn't see what happened. But I have to go with, like most Americans, if you notice, Benghazi has kind of fallen off of the media radar. And that's not it is by design. You know, we don't talk about it. But I'm happy to see that there are some politicians or some media pundits out there who are trying to bring this back. And this actually happened yesterday.
Completely different subject. The House Armed Services Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, as we may know, last week held its 9th hearing on the subject of Benghazi. 7 of them have been classified, as was last week's, where the witness was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dempsey. I know that you have covered the particular subject matter before in this briefing room, but it has resurfaced in a fresh context as receiving fresh scrutiny from these House Armed Services Committee investigators, and therefore I thought it fair to give you another chance to address it. They accept the White House's conclusion that no military rescue or response could possibly have been achieved in Benghazi that night because the posturing of U.S. military assets around the world was so poor on that night. And this has led them...
That's the statement of the House Republican subcommittee chairman, correct?
Well, that is their conclusion. And this has led them to refocus their attention on a press release that your office issued on September 10, the day before the attacks. It was very brief. It was 4 sentences. But it essentially stated that the president on that day, September 10, 2011, had met with key national security principals to assure that as the eve of the 11th anniversary of 9/11 approached, steps were being taken to assure the protection of U.S. personnel and assets. It alluded further to meetings that John Brennan at that time had held. The House investigators have determined that General Carter Ham, the combatant commander with jurisdiction over Libya, was not consulted as part of those sessions. I wonder if you could tell us more about what those meetings entailed, who the participants were, how closely vetted that or thoroughly vetted that press release was, and whether the White House might be willing to make available either to congressional investigators and or to the public the emails, the memos, and other sort of paperwork that was associated with the of that press release.
James, the President of the United States, as did his predecessor, received a briefing from his national security team, principals of that team, on the eve of the anniversary of 9/11, on the actions that were being taken both here in the homeland and around the world in preparation for potential threats. If your question is, was the preparation for, or was there adequate security at the diplomatic facility in Benghazi to protect the Americans there, the answer is categorically no, as the President said after the attack in Benghazi, which is why he said he would make sure that his administration did everything it could to bring those to justice who killed 4 Americans. And he endorsed the effort undertaken by former Secretary Clinton to set up an independent accountability review board to investigate the situation both before, during, and after the Benghazi attacks, with a particular focus on the question of security. And they found problems with security and made a series of recommendations that Secretary Clinton and her successor, Secretary Kerry, have addressed in.
Now, if you notice that the administration is focusing on this thing called security. You know, obviously there wasn't enough security. I think that's pretty clear. The question is this. You had striker teams within the area that could have been there pretty quick. You had different military forces that were there that could have been there pretty quick, and they were ordered or given the order to stand down. But the truth is this. This is the one thing the administration is going to, whenever Benghazi comes up, or the conversation of Benghazi comes up, they are going to shift it to, oh yeah, we made mistakes and we agree with that. And we're going to address it. We're going to put a panel together, you know, with our cronies on the panel, and you know, look at the IRS scandal and the NSA and all that. You know, you want to see what they're going to do in the future, watch what they've done in the past. And so, you know, they're going to put the puzzle or the panel together. But this is the thing that's so aggravating. And most Americans don't know this because mainstream media has just kind of left it alone. You know, in the Reagan years, we had this controversy called Contra. Iran and Contra hearings. Remember those? For those that don't know, you know, our government was using different organizations within government to subvert the law. They were funneling drugs to pay for arms and back and forth under the watchful eye of different organizations within the United States government. There was a huge uproar about that. One thing that this administration is trying to stay away from, and there's several, go out there, do the research. Mainstream media, and you're not going to find it in the United States media, but you'll find it in RT News, and you'll find it in the UK Mirror, and you'll find it in different other media sources. And they basically break it down like this. The Central Intelligence Agency was running a Contra-like program with Ambassador Stevens at the forefront of that program. Now, how do I know this? I'm not saying this. In a report early in the March of 2011, military experts cited Stevens as the man in charge of deposing Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi. Following this mission, Stevens relocated to Benghazi, where he began amassing an arsenal of at least 20,000 shoulder-launched missiles, rocket-propelled grenade launchers, and infrared-honing surface-to-air missile launchers. So Stevens, our ambassador, was not just an ambassador. Apparently, he was also an arms dealer. The question is, who is he dealing arms for? I think it's pretty obvious the answer to that. I don't think he was, a rogue arms dealer. To facilitate arms shipments to Syria, Stevens worked with a man named Adukim Benja. Can't pronounce the name. I'm sorry, I do. It's Bilhadj of the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. By November 2011, Benja was meeting with Free Syrian Army leaders to arrange the deals. So here you go. You had Ambassador Stevens, who had amassed quite an arsenal, to say the least. After Muammar Gaddafi was deposed. He was then meeting with a second party, who was then in turn giving weapons to the Syrian freedom fighters. Now, there's so many problems here. I just want to let you know, the Syrian freedom fighters, it's amazing how the press, the Syrian freedom fighters, you know how they always said one man terrorist is another man freedom fighter? Let's call them what they are, Al-Qaeda. It is, it's no news. This is no news. It should not be. It might be to some people, but most patriots already know this. The Syrian freedom fighters are Al-Qaeda. If you want to see who our president has aligned himself with in Syria, you don't have to go far. There are plenty of videos, just gut-wrenching videos of these savage animals that our president and our State Department and Hillary Clinton and have aligned themselves with. Secretary of State John Kerry, still there. The videos are just horrific. I see them. They come to me through Facebook, through sources in overseas. And I got to tell you, it is just gut wrenching to see what these just evil. It's evil what these evil people are, and our government supporting them. Let's talk about the little girl who's chained to a fence. Chained to a fence. And she was forced to watch the slaughter and the dehumiliation of her family, of her father and her mother. It's just, I can't describe it. And then ultimately the murder of her family. A little girl. I have daughters. I can't imagine. As an adult, I couldn't imagine seeing that brutality. And then they took the little girl, unchained her. They abused her. They abused her physically. The mental damage was already done. Having her chained to a fence, having to watch the abuse and the slaughter of her mom and her family, father. But as that wasn't enough, they took the little girl, unchained her. They abused her as well. And then they cut her heart out. These sick bastards. These sick bastards. And these are the people that our government is supporting over in Syria. It's just unbelievable. Mainstream media, isn't talking about that. And that's not one incident. There's incidents of beheadings. There's incidents of Catholic priests being dragged out in the street and executed, beheaded. Nuns being raped and being beheaded. This is not a one-time incident. This is the group that our government is supporting. And it might have started, it didn't might have started. It started with Stevens. Stevens indirectly giving arms, using his position in Libya to funnel arms to the Syrian Islamic fighters, Syrian army leaders, Free Syrian Army leaders, Al-Qaeda. For those that don't know, Al-Qaeda. They call themselves, they're Al-Qaeda. That's already been proven. The same people that, flew airplanes, attacked us on 9/11. So let me finish up. To secure a crucial 40,000-ton shipment of armaments on September 2nd, 2012, Petraeus met with Turkish Prime Minister Recep Erdogan in order for his country to act as a conduit into Syria. 4 days later, a Libyan vessel named Al Ansar arrived in Externan, Turkey, carrying the weapons cache. On May 9th, Liberty News, a grassroots TV station, revealed details about the point man for these transactions. So here you go. On May 9th, Stevens had dealt with applications coming from U.S. weapons dealers requesting licenses to sell arms to the Libyan insurgents, reported Liberty News. Finally, on September 11, 2012, Stevens negotiated in Benghazi with two CIA cutout organizations before his final meeting with Turkish Consular General Al-Sat Akin. On August 1st, award-winning journalist Jim Hoft of the conservative website Gateway Pundits summarized what transpired. Turkey was the staging ground through which Syria-bound guns and rebels were smuggled. Mr. Akin and company made a substantial financial contribution to Stevens and left. So you got to ask yourself, this is this generation's Iran-Contra. Once again, our government, through third-party sources and channels, are funneling guns through Ambassador Stevens through Turkey into Syria to Al-Qaeda. So, why didn't we help them? Why was there not a rescue operation, as they asked about in the video? On the 11th year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, rebel groups in Libya launched an assault on the U.S. consulate there. 8 hours later, 4 U.S. personnel were killed, including Ambassador Christopher Stevens, and at least 7 were wounded. It has been reported that the U.S. military had ships in the Mediterranean Sea and in Africa. So why weren't the U.S. forces dispatched to Benghazi consulate and annexed to stop the bloodshed? They actually had a striker team right down the street that could have been there and could have performed an extricate. or extricated them. So you got to ask, why wasn't there a rescue mission? On August 5th and 8th, AFP spoke with David Smith, co-founder of the independent non-for-profit blog named Barracuda Brigade. Smith said, according to our military sources, I can say with 98% certainty that the Benghazi attacks were uplinked by overhead drones to networks that included the White House Situation Room, State Department, and CIA headquarters, so they could monitor the attacks in real time. Yet almost immediately, Barack Obama issued a stand-down order before watching people die on camera. He then got up the next morning for the campaign rally in Las Vegas. This is why this administration is trying to defer this. The truth will come out. The witnesses are there. The witnesses from Benghazi, the individuals that were actually part of Benghazi and stuff, have been put in, witness protection programs, not by the individuals trying to get to the truth, but by the government, because they don't want them in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and all of the foreign affairs. They don't want them in front of the camera so they can actually tell the truth, what actually happened. When questioned about the possibility of full-scale rescue, Smith answered, we've categorically confirmed that the U.S. military had ships in Libya waters 20 minutes away. It would have taken 10 minutes prep time and 10 minutes flight time, but Obama issued a stand-down order. Our embassy, our country, our foreign, because an embassy is our soil, was under attack, and President Obama, if true, gave a stand-down order. Expanding on his notion, Smith continued, there's only one office with the authority to prevent a military response, and that's the president. Commanders in the field were prepared to respond, and later, as a result, 2 of them were court-martialed while another was removed from duty. So there you go. So individuals that are in the know have been court-martialed, removed of duty, and basically discredited by this administration and the media. Providing more details, Smith explained a diplomatic security agent named David Ubben, along with 2 former Navy SEALs, rejected the stand-down order so they could defend our men. During the rooftop firefight, Ubben, profusely bleeding, fired laser markers with GPS coordinates so that any ship or fighter within range could intervene. These guys on the ground fully expected help to arrive, but none never came. Ubben still lies in Walter Reed Hospital today. As to the motivation behind the executive order to allow these American men to die, Smith offered this theory. Being 7 weeks before the 2012 election, Obama had no intention of retaliating against the responsible parties at Benghazi, Smith said. The reason why is that since weapons were being delivered to al-Qaeda rebels in Syria in an act of treason to aid and arm and abet a known enemy. Remember, we're at war with al-Qaeda and we're giving them arms. Obama wasn't going to respond against the attacks, so he tried to let details about his administration's arm trafficking die there. There you go. We all heard the debates. We were all told, it was about a movie. Then it wasn't about a movie, but it was about a movie. When the truth was, it was about arms. It was about the illegal transfer of high-grade military weapons to enemies of the United States, declared enemies of the United States. It was about preserving the election, the presidency. Lawless. This is a lawless administration. We all know that. All of us patriots know this. Hopefully we are reaching those who are on the fence. If you'd like to join in the conversation, you can always give us a call at 262-997-0607, 262-997-0607, or you can Skype us at the Midnight Patriot is our Skype name. So we got arms deals going on, documented. No one's refuting that. We have soldiers who are now sitting in Walter Reed, suffering or recuperating from their wounds, who can give testimony, who were there. Ubin was there. We have the President of the United States giving a stand-down order to defend our ambassador and our foreign soil, our embassy. Why? You heard that they're, obviously because of the upcoming presidential election. The fact that they were caught red-handed. You got to remember, this is an administration who was caught with Fast and Furious, who declared documents about Fast and Furious and communications about Fast and Furious as national secrets. We weren't under attack by Al-Qaeda. We sold the guns. I don't understand. But so you got to ask yourself, why the whitewash? Why the whitewash? On September 12, 2012, one day after the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, Barack Obama appeared in the White House Rose Garden and pledged to capture those responsible for the assault. Nearly a year later, only one individual has been arrested and charged with organizing the attack. Amid a slew of bold-faced lies and ongoing cover-ups, Obama and his spokesman now refer to Benghazi as a phony scandal. Going back to my earlier my earlier audio that I was playing. In the press conference today, or on the 17th, I say, Carney was asked, and the Fox News reporter continued to ask him questions in regard to the Benghazi scandal. Carney, just at the end of you got to watch the full video, the full audio, the full video on YouTube. You can Google it and see it. Carney decided that he was no longer going to answer any more questions, and just walked out. Just walked out as press secretary. No longer going to participate. As the questions started to get poignant and direct with specific knowledge of the truth, Carney just walked out, refused to, and shrugged it off as partisan medium. See, this is an administration that knows the media, knows how to orchestrate the media very well. And you're seeing that firsthand. You're seeing last week, Carney refused to acknowledge the reporter on several occasions. And now this week, you have Carney who just walked out of the reporter and refused to do that. So, we do have, the Benghazi deal is not over with, people, listeners. We do have hearings that are coming up. I know that Rand Paul is part of those hearings. I'm sure there's going to be some questions. Look for national security to be raised, and the fact that we won't be able to hear it as citizens, only time will tell. But this is, as I said, and I've continued to say this is an administration of lawlessness. Lawlessness. Their scandals go deep, and then they go wide. And the only reason why they get away with what they do is because of mainstream media. Mainstream media allows them to continue to perpetrate their issues. And I think what, we talk about what goes on in Congress. If you watch what goes on, as the media starts turning on this administration, that's when you actually see the change. They're experts at it. They're masters of deception at this. So only time will tell. Only time will tell. So until we get the truth about what actually happened in Benghazi, I, the Midnight Patriot, Jeff Norton, I'm going to be running this ad until we finally get the truth.
Lies, deceit, and cover-ups. That's the Obama administration's response to the terrorist attack that killed 4 Americans. And now parents of the victims are demanding the truth from Obama.
Well, I know there was a cover-up. I had to get my information from outside sources because the government would not tell me. And Hillary said that what difference does it make? It makes one big difference to me. My son was killed.
4 men with careers protecting American security were murdered, and Barack Obama doesn't even act concerned.
His eyes were looking over my shoulder like he could not look me in the eye. And it was not as sincere. I'm really sorry, that your son died.
Enough of the lies. Enough
of the lies. So that's an ad that we're actually going to be playing as part of our PSA here at the Midnight Patriot. We're going to include it in our deck starting next week. It's time that we start getting the truth. And we will get the truth one way or the other, Mr. President. You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. It is Friday the 18th. We're at the final stretch of the week. So we're going to take a small break. When I get back from the break, we'll talk about some more things in the news. If you want to join the conversation, give us a call at 347-205-9899. You can Skype us at The Midnight Patriot, or you can give us a call at 262-997-0607.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost,
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children. Visit stjude.org.
America, welcome home the brave. The brave men and women who serve their country are coming home. Home to their cities and towns. Home to their mountains and valleys. Home to their families and friends. Home to America. Some of these warriors are coming home with wounds you can see, and some with wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. Contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
That's right. You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. If you'd like to join the conversation for the last about 20 minutes of the show, you can give us a call at area code 347-205-9899, or you can Skype us at the Midnight Patriot. And also you can call our backdoor number, our top secret number, only given out during the show, which is 262-997-0607. So, we're going to be wrapping up the news going into the week. I hope you guys have plans with your family. Like I said, I've always said here at the Midnight Patriot and stuff, if there's a greater need for our communities to come together, this is it. Now, if you don't know where to start, we as a culture have been, taught or by design to become independent, separate from each other. One thing that separates us from European countries is that you don't have generational wealth or generational in the home. It's amazing how media portrays that. Now you have generational debt living in the same home, but you don't have you don't have families. We live so far apart. We're scattered through our mobility and everything, and all across this great land. One of the things that, I've always said about Social Security, one thing that the consequences of Social Security is that it removed the responsibility of taking care of the elderly, your family, your grandparents and your parents away and put it on the backs of the government. I don't know if that was by design, but it was the breakup of the family unit. We now live everywhere throughout this country. It's amazing, though, that the ones that suck from the teat of America, and you and I, they all live together. You have generational poverty, living under the same roof, educating themselves on how to extract more, like that young lady audio that I played earlier. It's disgusting. It's utterly disgusting. So, but we're going to wind down. Now, one of the things, we didn't get to last night, and I want to stress this, is I want to let you guys that, travel, go through the TSA standpoint. I don't know if you saw this. TSA Air Marshal was actually arrested today for apparently taking photographs of up women's skirts. It's disgusting. We hear about TSA agents stealing. You hear about TSA agents, pedophile rings. You hear about them, and all sorts of lewd conduct. Now, I don't think that's a function of the TSA that creates it. I don't know. I just think whenever you get a group of people together, you're always going to have a segment that are just deviant. But the shocking part about the TSA was actually reported yesterday on the Alex Jones show. And I've gone out and I've actually read the documents, and I can tell you that, I censored them. Not censored, it's the wrong word, but I perused them. I checked the documents, and they're legit. So, So yesterday, John Colbert, the engineer and activist challenging the constitutionality of the TSA body scanners and pat-downs, was on Alex Jones' InfoWars yesterday. Basically, he uncovered documents that in the TSA's own words, said that there's no actual threat addressing basis for the new body scanners or invasion pat-downs conducted in American airports. The TSA has already said in their own documents that were released through a FISA or Freedom of Information request have said that there's no basis for it, for all of this. So you got to ask yourself, so why is the government doing it? Why does the government do half the things? To grow, to become bigger, to be more invasive in our lives and our decision-making processes. That's why. That's why the government did. Well, this is no news. So, he discovered this document. He was on the Alex Jones show yesterday, and they were discussing it. Well, guess what? He gets don't have any hardwood here. He gets a little knock on the door. Mr. Colbert has received a call from the Department of Justice stating he violated a court order sealing the document that InfoWars made public yesterday, even though the court had accidentally published the document on a public site. They're not denying it. That's what's funny about this. They're not denying it at all. But what they're saying is that you can't talk about it. Even after they remember the TSA manuals, the training manuals that they actually published and made it public to everybody, and then told everybody if you read them, you're in violation of a Secrecy Act, and you could be charged if you disseminated them. They published them. They published them publicly. So, so once again, bloggers, alternative media hosts such as myself, Alex Jones, are coming under fire. President Barack Obama actually the other day in a speech after signing, talked about, don't listen to us. Yeah, they don't want us to listen. They don't want you to listen to us because we typically have the facts. Now, I know a lot of you will say, but really, that's why it's important that whenever I do a show, I give you links to every source that we use during the show for that night. So if you go out to www.themidnightpatriot.com, click on the episode that you're listening to, and then you'll see the sources of all my documents. So you can go out and make your own conclusion. You can do your own research. Open media. We want that. We want that level of scrutiny in what we do. I'll be the first one to tell you, if we produce or publish something that's inaccurate or incorrect, I want you to correct me on it. I do. Because we want to put out the right news. Because it just gives credibility that when we do put the news out there, that the news that we provide you and the information we give you is truthful. And let's talk about news. I know that we are effecting change in our small community on Facebook. It's amazing. It's amazing. Things that we talk about, I've already been ahead of the curve. We have already, here at the Midnight Patriot, have already been ahead of the curve on several issues. And it's refreshing to know that, and I know you're listening to us, because no sooner that I say something, the document will appear out there on the Facebook post. A good example of that is we played the article last Friday of the great orator Paul Harvey about if I was the devil. And we play that every Friday night. And now I'm seeing that pop up on Facebook, which is awesome. That means that we're affecting change. We know we are reaching an audience. We know that. And, you know, the best way that you can support us so we can continue, we're going to continue to do this. I will find the means to make sure this show continues. But we do have an opportunity to get to an audience of about 180 million potential listeners. And the only way we're going to do that is by getting you involved in the conversation, by getting you to call in. This show is for you. It is for you. It's for you to voice your opinion, to give voice to those conversations and everything. So if you want to participate, feel free to give us a call. You know, but if you can't, I understand. Like us on Facebook. Tell your friends about us. I get about 100 new friend requests a day. And these are patriots. These aren't just people wanting to play games. I check out the friends. And we get the likes. And we're growing this media. But we can't do it without your help. And the way that we do that is, and what I'm asking for is, you know, if you have a business or you know of a business that can advertise on our show, please feel free to let us know. We'll give them not only the advertisement on the banner and the website, but we'll also give them advertising during the podcast. But if you don't have a business and you still want to contribute, the best way to do it is you know, subscribe to our podcast. Listen to what we're doing. Give us constructive criticism, feedback. Help us grow this show. Tell your friends about it. Tell your neighbors about it. Tell, you know, at the water cooler, tell them about us. You know, we want to give a voice to the Patriot movement. Kind of work through the lies and the deceit out there in media. So, you know, we're getting close to the top of the hour. I do want to kind of give you guys a heads up. So you know, we're getting attacked with that with Alex Jones. There's a bill out there, HJ Res 15. I just want to let you guys make you aware of it. Proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to repeal the 22nd article of amendment, thereby removing the limitation on the number of terms an individual may serve as president. Representative Serrano Jose of New York is doing that. Don't be surprised. You know, one of the things, don't be surprised. You hear it first. Mark it on your calendar. You know, you hear about Arnold Schwarzenegger wanting to run for president, possibly. Don't get caught into the trap. You know, he cannot run for president because he was not a natural-born U.S. citizen. He can't under our Constitution. But you're starting to see it on mainstream media more and more. So that just tells me that the move here, or the play here, people, is that they're going to start possibly, because he is a charismatic individual. And he's a member of the Republican Party. Remember, you know, they got all the time in the world. We're playing checkers. The elite and the New World Order is playing chess. So they might pass a law, and us Republicans, and that's why I'm fiercely against most of the laws, even the Patriot Act, you know, Republican law. Because I know that once that takes root in our government and our people, it's just going to be expanded. So you got to be aware, because you might think, oh yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, forget his personal life or whatever, is a great, you know, he'd be another Ronald Reagan. But the problem is that when he leaves office, who's the next one? Who's the next one? So you don't want to mess around with the Constitution of the United States, especially now. The other thing, too, is when they open up the Constitution, what else are they going to change? Second Amendment rights. You already have the Senate saying that the Second Amendment rights are debatable. So, you know, I'm a firm believer. Just leave it alone. It's not broke. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't care if the president has a 2,300-page rewrite of the Constitution, or some of his minions. I don't know if he has it, but people that work for him have proposed a different Constitution. That's out there. I don't know if you guys know this too about the news, in the news, and we're going to track this down a little bit more. But apparently, we always hear about possibility, an asteroid hitting the world. NASA scientists, I got to pull this up. We went to this non-paperless office. I don't know if I like it. I really don't. But, we'll see. I'm definitely going to throw this out. This iPad stuff. Give me good old paper. NASA miscalculates asteroid path. Japanese science predict Earth impact. Yeah. So we're going to be watching this. Scientists from the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency have announced that NASA made a critical miscalculation in a prediction that asteroid 2013 TV-135 will miss Earth. Lead scientists explained that NASA scientists failed to account for Earth's gravitational wobbling. When this wobbling is factored in, the asteroid is on a direct collision course with Earth. Don't raise the panic alarms just yet, but we're going to kind of watch that. They're talking, I think it's going to be 2035, 34 is when this is going to happen. So we're kind of looking at that. Now, I was reading the article. We're going to track this down because this is I can't believe he said this. So this might tell us that we might have got spoofed here, America. This is in some of the news, but ended the announcement with his grave note: the size of the asteroid will cause great damage to Earth when it collides. We cannot imagine the catastrophe. It will strike with a force greater than 10,000 Godzillas. There you go. I think we just got spoofed here at the Midnight Patriot and stuff. But that's okay. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. We're kind of winding down. I hope, got 3 more minutes. I hope that you have a great weekend. Spend it with your loved ones. Spend it with your family. Do the things that you have to do. We're going to be making some changes here in the studio, upgrading our systems, making things a little bit better. We're going to be adding some more technology. We're going to, I can tell you this, I'm definitely going to be getting rid of, this paperless.
90 seconds.
Paperless system. So that was actually Block Talk telling us that we're fixing to go off the air. But if you stay with us, we actually have our other feed that most of you are listening to, the 128K feed. And, we'll kind of wrap this show up. And like I said, we're in this together. We need each other more now than ever. If you don't have a good support or organizational group, fellow patriots and stuff, I think the best place you could start is obviously through Facebook. There's a lot of events going on there that you can kind of follow. We're trying to have more and more events here at the Midnight Patriot. We're kind of just putting it together. We're kind of learning a little bit here as we go, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So what I want to do is, like we always done here at the Midnight Patriot, and I'm looking for it, and I cannot believe I cannot find it. See, I say this all the time. I need a Snurdly. I need a producer. I need someone to kind of put these cues up for me, because I can't do two things at once. Yes, I know. My significant other, she's laughing right now, because that is an ongoing thing in our house, that I can do two things at once. Of course, I can't. So let me get this queued up for us. Because I'd like to finish every Friday, and I do apologize for this. Dead airspace. I'm trying to type and talk at the same time as we close out our show. So like I said, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend with your family, with your loved ones. Remember, if you see a soldier, a uniformed officer, or a paramedic, or EMT, or fireman, say thank you. Just let them know that. Say thank you. After they give you your ticket, say thank you. It will throw them off and stuff. So with that, I actually found out what I was looking for. But with that, I just want to let you know, God bless you. May God keep you safe, take care of your needs. If you don't belong to a church, get involved with a church. If you have any questions, or you want to talk to the Midnight Patriot, you can always reach us on our Facebook page. You can link to us through our website, www.themidnightpatriot.com. And with that, I just want to say thank you. It's been week number 2, another phenomenal week. I cannot have done this without you and your support, and the callers that have called in, our guests. I just want to tell you, we started out the week, awesome. Joe Kernitis, that's Joel Kernitis, was on the air. He was the young man in the video that actually broke down the barricades there at the Washington Monument over the last weekend. And him and the Patriots stormed the monument, took over our national monuments, led to the vet storming of the monuments the following day. So we had Joel on. We had Mark from Prepper Recon, which was a really, really great show. Next week, I will tell you, we have a super guest. We talk about where this country's heading and where our pitfalls are going to be. And I'm a firm believer that if you want to know where you're going, or if you want to, I'm sorry, I'm doing two things at once again. So if you want to know, about a subject, get an expert. So next week we have Jake Danishevsky on. He's a writer, author, but more importantly, he's also a patriot. And he has written a book. He's going to be on Monday's show, or the 22nd. He has written a book called Aftertaste and Tales from Russia. He's going to be on the show first thing. Give you a little background. Jake Danishevsky is a Russian-born American citizen and Jewish. He's been raised during the oppressive Soviet regime and fortunate enough to leave it behind. This political memoir is his contribution to show people the contrast between what he has experienced and what we are experiencing here in the United States currently. Aftertaste and Tales of Russia, forgive me for being anti-socialism, is part memoir, part political analysis and opinion. So join us on the 22nd. He'll be here from 9 to 11 p.m. taking your calls. We're going to be talking about his book and everything. So once again, I just want to say, I know we're going over our 2-hour limit. I just want to say thank you for a wonderful week. Thank you for the many shout outs and the support that you've given me during this time as we're growing this. But also I want to thank you for helping us get the word out to fellow patriots. And you can always reach me at themidnightpatriot.com, our Facebook page. Links there. You can friend us. I am always accessible, always open for messages. Shoot me a message. I'll be glad, I will respond. Might take me an hour or so, or, a day. If you shoot me a message tonight, tomorrow you'll get a response from me. I'm accessible. So with that, I just want to end tonight's broadcast with this.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.